From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes, brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And Wally, it is yet another episode of 10K Takes Television. And I think we're pretty football-centric in this edition of the program. But we'll get into some hockey and basketball and maybe some baseball. But your Minnesota Vikings coming off the bye week, 5-1. Arizona coming to the House of Noise on Sunday. With the exception of Philadelphia, there's nobody really with a better record than Minnesota.
Right. Second best record in the NFL. I mean, there's no two ways about it. You take 5-1. You're happy that you've only lost the one football game, and they lost to Philadelphia. And this is certainly a home game, a winnable game against the Cardinals. I don't know. There's not much to complain about. I know that there's folks out there kind of nitpicking the wins that the Vikings have, but it's the NFL. Take it what you can get and move on to the next week. I mean, the Green Bay Packers would take any one of the Vikings wins right now.
No doubt about it. Detroit would, and there's a number of other teams that would. And the Vikings have been fortunate so far. They've had the bounces. They've caught teams at the right time. I think Arizona, though, will present some challenges because they have a mobile, elusive quarterback in Kyler Murray.
Doubt.
DeAndre Hopkins is back. He's a guy that Kyler will target at the wideout position. They acquired Robbie Anderson from Carolina, which is in fire sale mode because they sent Christian McCaffrey as well to San Francisco. This could be a trap game. So I'd say watch out for the Cardinals because they're in a very winnable division. Suddenly the NFC West is mediocre, at least through the first, 6-7 weeks of the season. Cardinals are in it. They need this game as much as Minnesota.
Yeah, and it's that bend but don't break defense that has survived so far for the Vikings. I mean, they've come up with some big plays. I think I mentioned it last week, the Cam Dantzler steal. They've had some big plays down the stretch. Patrick Peterson's interception. They've made some plays, and they're going to continue. They're going to have to continue to make plays defensively because they are not a lockdown defense. I don't see them as that, but I do see them making some plays things that they didn't necessarily do last year. They weren't necessarily a team that got a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, and if you're giving up chunks of yards between the 20s, but you tighten up in the red zone, that's okay. I mean, if you give up 3s instead of 7s, I mean, if you want to go way back in time, the Purple People Eaters, the legendary defense, right? With Carl Eller, Alan Page, Jim Marshall, Gary Larson, that group, they gave up a lot of yards. Yeah. But when push came to shove, they kept you out of the end zone most of the time.
I want to switch gears here. There's a team that's not playing very good defense right now, or they didn't at least through the first portion of their schedule, your Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know what the answer is long term, and I know it's a small sample size. They're just underway with this season, but boy, both of the games I was at the game against Utah, and then I was at the first San Antonio game, and man alive, they're just like the Swiss cheese defense, man. Nobody gets back on defense. When they do get back, they get caught in screens. They got to fix something.
Well, they gave up a boatload to get Rudy Gobert from Utah. I mean, that was quite the bounty for the Jazz. It remains to be seen whether or not that deal will pan out for Minnesota. But, Gobert has to deliver. And, they're going with this Twin Towers concept, Gobert and Cat, a couple of skyscrapers. Not necessarily what you see in today's NBA, which is more three-point centric and all that, thanks to Steph Curry. But I think you're still looking at Cat and Rudy Gobert. Where's their mesh point? They have to be able to really get in sync defensively. That'll happen. I really believe it will. But they lost some key pieces. You talk a lot about Jaden McDaniels, and that's a big one. And then, of course, Patrick Beverley was coming to town Friday with the LA Lakers, and he will be chirping. He will have something to say. He wasn't happy the way he found out about the trade from the Timberwolves. He wanted Chris Finch to call him personally, and I guess that didn't happen.
No, and I'm wondering how he's going to be treated. I think the fans are going to cheer him. What do you think of that?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. Yeah. He was a fan favorite last year as they made that playoff run. They won the play-in game against the LA Clippers, and then he went right in front of the Clippers bench, another one of his ex-teams.
Oh, yeah.
And he started barking. He said, "You take your blank back to Los Angeles." You know, he was all into it. He's going to do the same thing to Minnesota.
Yeah, no question. It looks like your Wild are starting to play a little bit better.
Yeah, you know what? They got their first true two on Tuesday night in Montreal with a 3-1 win. That's the least amount of goals they've given up in a single game. I think we've harped a lot on the start when they were giving up 7, 6, and so they're.
So what's wrong with that?
Points. Well, it's hard to win those kind of games in the NHL.
Really?
Yeah, okay. Unless you have Phil Esposito and Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky offensively, right? I mean,
that'd be an interesting line.
Might score more than 7.
They might.
But we'll see. I still think they're going to struggle because they're starting to feel the effects of the caponomics with Ryan Suter and Zach Parise and what they can and can't do. That's why Kevin Fiala's in Los Angeles with the Kings. They didn't want to get rid of Kevin Fiala, but they were forced to.
And they didn't want to pay Cam Talbot either.
No.
Mm-hmm. Couple of things that they have to be wary of going forward.
All right, well, stick around. We do have more football topics coming up. We'll get into the purple with Leo Lewis. And we'll talk with a coach named Lombardi right here on 10K Takes, your purple ticket.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
This is 10,000 Takes. I'm Wally. He's Eric. And Viking football back rolling this weekend, of course. Back at home against the Arizona Cardinals. And we are joined now by a former Minnesota Viking, longtime front office guy with the Vikings, Leo Lewis. Leo, welcome to the show. 5-1 through 6 games, through 7 weeks, including the bye. First place, 2.5-game lead over the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. As a former Viking and as an outside observer these days, your thoughts on where they are right now?
Well, I'm really elated. I don't think I've ever experienced during my years being 5-1, but I think it's a great position to be in, particularly when you've beaten all of your divisional foes already. And so you got a one-up on 3 teams that are vying for your position. But I think certainly people would say that, they haven't played anybody yet. But I tell you what, every team has great players and can beat you. And certainly the teams have fallen short playing the Vikings, and many of them, were in a position to beat the Vikings this year so far. So I think we are getting into a head of steam to see some exciting football the rest of the season here.
Yeah, and Leo, the critics and even some of the hardcore Viking fans are still not sold on this 5-1 record. But, if you're going to be successful, you need to win the close games. They've had a knack for doing that. The ball has to bounce your way. They had a double doink against New Orleans. And sometimes you face teams at the right time. No Jameis Winston, no Alvin Kamara, no Tua Tagovailoa. That's part of the deal, isn't it? I mean, luck and timing.
Well, of course. And teams have beaten us that way as well. But let's put it in this perspective. You only need to win 6 more games to really give you a shot to be in the playoffs. So I think it doesn't matter. I'd rather be the division head and leader and winner with a record that doesn't appear to be against good foes than not to be the division winner. So at least winning the division is the first objective, and then doing well in the playoffs is the second objective.
Their ability to get Justin Jefferson the ball the last couple of games, I thought, is key to them and their offense. Your thoughts on J-Jets and what they've been able to do and how Kevin O'Connell has been able to, weave him back in?
Right. Well, he's played against some great corners over the last several weeks, and certainly if a team wants to stop one person on the team, they can do that if they really want to. I think it's the Vikings' objective is to run the ball. That's a run first team anyway, and then use the pass in various ways, particularly play action plays to get downfield. So, but I still believe Jefferson is the key to winning, and I think he's going to also be the key to controlling the ball as well.
Leo, when you played, a big part of your game was punt returns, kick returns. You were a receiver, but you were also a special teams guy. Give us a grade on Matt Daniels, the new special teams coordinator. You've got Kenny Nwangu back there. You've got KJ Osborne, Jalen Rigor from Philadelphia. Do you like what they are doing in the return game?
Well, you know what? I like the kickers. I certainly believe they've put the defense, when you talk about kickoffs, in a good position to defend more field. And certainly the field goal kicker is going to miss some. The returners, they don't have enough chances to return the ball. And certainly the kicking game is really focused more on the kickers than it has the returners. And I'm depressed by that, because I think returning the ball is such a great play, whether it's a punt or a kickoff. The only returns that really kind of give us a lot of life are interception returns and fumble returns. So I think the kicking game is doing very well. I think the new special teams player has some good personnel. I don't think we need to change them at all. But I am disheartened a little bit because you don't get to see a lot of punt returns and kickoff returns.
When you were returning punts, what was job one other than catching the ball?
Other than catching the ball?
Yeah, you got to catch the ball first. We know that.
Yeah. Staying alive. Staying alive.
That's where I was going with this.
Giving your teammates, trusting in your teammates. One breakdown could really be unfortunate for a returner. But I think, I've always approached it this way, just to make positive yardage, to give the offense less field to score. And but more importantly, I was in a position where Jerry Burns primarily just wanted control of the ball. He didn't care how many yards I returned the ball. He actually forced me to fair catch quite a bit when we could have set up the play for me to return the ball. He was really interested, as an offensive coach primarily, interested in gaining control of the ball, and he just despised fumbles, let alone punt return fumbles, when the returner couldn't catch the ball.
I wondered all those years about all those fair catches. Now I know. Hey, go ahead.
Well, I mean, our defense really did well too. They bent a lot but didn't break, and consequently, you had a lot of teams punting from their own 40-yard line quite a bit, long enough to where they couldn't kick a field goal. So we had great defenses, and I was able to return the ball quite a bit, but a lot of those punts were really high, and unfortunately didn't go in the end zone. So I had to fair catch.
You played at Missouri, as we can tell by the shirt you're wearing. Go Tigers. You played in the CFL. You played with Cleveland, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Were you ever on a team or a program that did not focus on special teams enough? I mean, every coach says they do, but let's face it, some coaches, that's just lip service.
Right. Well, I returned punts in college, and that's what got me into the league. I think, however, I didn't return punt for the Vikings until I was 30 years old. I don't know if you know that or not, but I was primarily a wide receiver with the Minnesota Vikings initially. And then once we had great receivers come and compete for the position, such as Anthony Carter, Jake Reed, Chris Carter, I had a more resolute position on the team. So returning punts became more of a mainstay for me later in my career. But I do believe the way the NFL is, and as great as these punters and kickers are, it's going to minimize the return game, and I think it gives the special teams player a little bit more obligation to focus on other parts of special teams.
Well, Leo, appreciate you spending some time with us. Hopefully your Vikings will continue to roll so we have some positive things to talk about going down the stretch, because we've seen this before. We've seen fast starts that don't necessarily end up the way you want them to.
Right, and it doesn't always happen to Minnesota Vikings. We've seen it all over the league, and but I think we're in a great position record-wise, and coming off the bye week, I hope we have a lot of energy, and because we have a tough stretch here after the Cardinals.
No doubt. Thanks, Leo.
Thanks.
All right, take care, guys.
He is Leo Lewis, former Minnesota Viking, right here on 10,000 Takes. We'll be back and talking more football after this time out.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Ten Thousand Takes continues along, and we're going to talk some more football, but this time we're going to go to Friday night football, high school football, Eric, and the high school playoffs in the state of Minnesota have begun. And who better to talk to than a guy who's leading a squad that goes into the postseason unbeaten, number one in the state, and lost the state championship game last year. It's Matt Lombardi, a longtime coach now at Maple Grove, of course, was at Wayzata for a number of years before that. Coach, welcome to the show, first off. Tell me about going into the postseason unbeaten. Would you rather have lost a game this year and still got a number one seed, or are you happy to be where you're at?
No, I'm happy. I think, like I said, with the success we had last year and coming in, I think our kids believe, and it's kind of been a battle throughout the year getting some kids reps that we didn't really plan on getting. And so going into the playoffs now, I feel really good because we got a good foundation with the kids coming back and those that got a lot of reps. So I'm proud of them that they're 8-0 because the hand they were dealt was not easy and they were able to persevere through it.
Facilities, you guys certainly have all the bells and whistles in Maple Grove. Love your high school venue. You've got the Fernbrook Fields right next door. You've got a bubble, a dome if you need it, and grass fields. So Maple Grove seems to be a cutting edge. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm proud of that. I think about 11, 12 years ago when I came in, we've worked really hard in that. I think when we first came, we had our field, and we've got now a Jumbotron with it in the Fernbrook Fields. What I'm proud about is that's a community-run thing. It really has nothing to do with the school district. That was done from the community and from within, and they wanted it there. And so a big goal of mine, because I said I was at a school that was a multiple school district, I wanted to really bring the community into Maple Grove, and I've been proud. It seems like we brought, I think at the Prep Bowl last year, they said we had over like 17,000 fans on our side and things like that. So I'm really proud of how the community has bought into this and how these kids have represented them well. And yeah, we have a lot of this stuff that's there right now, but it was a lot of hard work to get there with our parents and community to get that done.
Prep Bowl, you were able to get to it last year, lost the Prep Bowl final. How big of a deal is it or was it for your program to make it all the way to the championship game? Obviously, you would have loved to have won it. We all know that. But how big of a deal is it for your program and the community to get to Prep Bowl? Because there's so many teams that make it to Prep Bowl now. You got 7 classes.
Right.
What does that do for your community and a program?
Well, I think it was a big deal for us because it was kind of a hump we had to get over. I think I said this to David LeVake and his mouth dropped. And I said, but if you look since like 2013, 2014, the 2 teams that have made the semis the most in 6A have been Eden Prairie and us. But we've always played each other, and Eden Prairie's had kind of our number. And then we played them again last year, but we finally got over the hump with them. But I think getting the prep role for our school is a big deal because, like I said, we have been right on that doorstep for a long time. We had to kind of get over that hump. So I think it's brought some belief in our school. And now it's kind of funny. Our school has belief we can get there now, and that's kind of neat. And then 3 months later, our hockey team's in the state finals. And so I think there's an attitude around Maple Grove that we truly want to be one of those great schools of the Minneapolis West Metro areas that we belong up there on top.
You played prep football in Illinois, and of course, they've churned out some great talent over the years. But Minnesota high school football seems to be trending up. Compare where the Land of Lakes is to the Land of Lincoln. Is Minnesota gaining ground on some other states now?
Yeah, I think the thing I notice the most about it is talk to my dad. He was a Hall of Fame coach in Illinois, and he would say this too, that the amount of athletic big linemen in the state is staggering. Way more than I saw in Illinois. The amount of big kids that are up front that can move and do things. There's a lot of that here that Illinois didn't have. That I think sometimes maybe the skill side of Illinois might have been a little bit better, and now we're getting better in that, and our skills getting right up there with it. But even when I first came here, the linemen here are really good, and I think that's why I like the North Dakota States and South Dakota States have such success. Is people forget this state exists, and then they get all those linemen there, and it's tough. And so comparing Minnesota, Illinois, I think the linemen here, that's really the hat to hang on, because there are some really good linemen in the state.
My friend David Levick, the Star Tribune, wrote a really good article this past week about the technology which has kind of invaded high school football, and the fact that you have the iPads on the sideline and the big screens and so on. Talk about how that has changed high school football in general and your program in particular.
Well, I think Huddle is a big difference. The Huddle, the way we can exchange films and things like that, compared to when I was at Wayzata, where you'd have to get in a car on Saturday morning and meet them at the local Cub food, and you'd have to just exchange tapes with coaches. That's what you used to do, where now everything is by 2 hours after the game, you have it. I'm kind of a dinosaur. I don't have all that stuff. I like to kind of do stuff just through talking with kids and educating them and doing it. We haven't got the big screen yet like some of the people do on the sideline, but I know it's a huge advantage for some. We just haven't elected to go that route yet.
But things are changing, aren't they? I mean, you certainly see it in the NFL and major college football, and it becomes a big deal now when a coordinator smashes his tablet or Tom Brady breaks his Surface. You haven't had that happen, have you?
No, and that's the part, like I said, and you can still, they have this, the Huddle film crew has kind of created technology where it's called a tactical film, where literally it's sending it to you while the game's going on. And so I still can use my phone, which is bizarre, and pull my phone out and say, hey, look at this. You're not stepping the right way on this play, or things like that. And so it's crazy how you can come off and it's immediate feedback that we didn't have that in the past. It was, you were banking on the guy up in the booth and things like that to see things, where now people actually get film coming right to them as it's being done.
Matt, a few years ago, Class 6A went to the 32-team tournament, so to speak, with the sections all intermixed, and you play down to, one champion. Tell me what this has meant for 6A. I know what it's meant as a broadcaster and as a fan, but what has it meant for the programs and for high school football in general?
I absolutely love it. And I think the part I like, which is sneaky, because a lot of people don't know how it's done, because we still have sections, and the coaches will seed sections, and then they make, off of those seeds, they make the random bracket that you see, but it's all crossing over to other sides. So it's kind of confusing. But what I like about it is I've also coached other sports, and what I think it's done for football, which I wish other sports would do, is because we are playing crossover brackets, that my players are aware of everybody in the state. It's not just their own section that they have to get out of to go to state. And a lot of times it becomes very provincial in the other sports. You only worry about those 6 teams that are in your section, where my kids are perfectly aware of who Rosemont is and who Shakopee is and who Lakeville South is. Even though those teams are on the other side of the city for us, my kids know a lot of teams and how they're doing. And so it's really broadened my kids becoming fans of the sport. I love that. So I absolutely love it.
Well, Matt, good luck in the postseason. I know your goal is to get back to U.S. Bank Stadium and hopefully win it this time, and we wish you all the best.
Hey, thanks, and thanks for all the great coverage you guys during the years. It means a lot.
Thank you.
All right. He is Matt Lombardi. He is the head football coach at Maple Grove. The Crimson, unbeaten heading into the postseason. We'll be back with more here on 10,000 Takes after this timeout. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
$10K Takes, another episode almost in the books. It goes by in a Minnesota minute, doesn't it?
It does.
We just have so much fun here in our spacious and luxurious studios. Takes of the day coming up. We'll find out what your mood is shortly. The mood in Dinkytown is gloom and doom regarding Gopher football. Let's see. They played in front of over 100K last week, the whiteout at Penn State. And by the way, they got buried in that whiteout.
Really?
Nobody could see them. Now they're going to drop down about 70 to 75,000 fans for this week's game, Rutgers at Minnesota at Huntington Bank Stadium. What a come down.
Yeah. Another one of Jerry Kill's former teams.
Rutgers, that's right. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It was I think it was one of his first stops after he left Minnesota. Yeah. What is there to say at this point? I mean, if they run the table in the Big Ten West schedule that they have remaining, so if they win their last 5 games and go 9-3, it'll be an okay season. They'll end up with an okay bowl game, and I guess all will be forgiven. But do you see that happening? I mean, they've got to go to Bucky Badgerville. We've got Iowa coming in here.
Still got to go to Lincoln.
Right. They still have to go to Nebraska. Nebraska's playing better since the departure of Scott Frost, since they were, as you like to say, defrosted.
They put Scott Frost on ice.
Yes, they did. But, unless something like that happens soon, I don't know. They're a non-factor.
No, I still think if they get to the Pinstripe Bowl, that's going to be a victory.
Oh, boy.
Right? The problem is, does New York City want the Gophers at Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, they do, because Minnesota teams don't do very well there.
That's true. But they won't be playing a New York team.
Oh, that's good. Wow,
unless it's Fordham or somebody like that, right?
Well, maybe they'll play Rutgers.
Oh, boy. That'll move the needle. No, it's really it's a Donnie Downer season. I mean, it started with so much promise. They were so dominant. Look, we knew they weren't beating great teams, with the exception of Michigan State. We thought at the time that was a signature win. Spartans aren't that good, but the way they pounded the first 3, it was not just that they won, but they took care of business.
Yeah.
And now it's been just this free fall, and Purdue, Illinois, and Penn State losses, and same old Gophers, and this probably was the year you could have made a move in the Big Ten West. So what's happened is, while Iowa and Wisconsin have come back to earth a bit, the perennial powers, right, in the division, Illinois has gone up the elevator, and Purdue's gone up a few floors, and Minnesota, as usual, stuck in the middle. Or in this case, stuck on the bottom.
Yeah. We're going to do takes of the day?
Oh, yes. Go, you're up. What's your mood?
Oh, boy. All right. Well, I was at that Timberwolves game earlier this week when they played San Antonio, and they fell behind by 35 points and eventually, in garbage time made it close. But afterwards, Karl Anthony Towns was asked what had to change. And, can they get Anthony Edwards going, Ant? And he mentioned, well, the one thing that Ant could change maybe would be his diet. I'm thinking, really? That's what you want to bring up? He says, yeah, Anthony Edwards makes fun about, eating Popeye's chicken and all this stuff. He says he's an elite athlete, got to have an elite diet. So I say this. If he does that, if Anthony Edwards can change his diet, and I'll talk to him about it, then Karl needs to stop complaining about every single call that goes against him. I am weary of Karl Anthony Towns complaining about the officials.
Mood Meter says demanding diva. Now he's going to tell Kat how to act.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck with that,
all right.
By the way.
You got a quick take
I
now.
do. All right, well, New York City, I'm going to give you some love. New Jersey, Giants 5-1, Jets 4-2, Big Blue, Gang Green. Great NFL season so far. Both teams on the upcoming schedule for the Minnesota Vikings. Is it sustainable? Probably not, but they're thinking Super Bowl. New York, right now in New Jersey.
Not going to happen.
All right, let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to Alex Yambrick, David Weld, the great people behind the scenes, Matt Lombardi, Leo Lewis, Rocky. He's Wally. I'm Eric. Thanks for watching. This is 10K Takes Your Sports Ticket.